In this video, I will show you what it took to get this rusty, tatty, old axle from this to this, and exactly how long it took and some lessons learned along the way. First off, I stripped most of the axle down while still on the car. This included the brake calipers, brake bias valve, hubs, discs, springs, shocks and axle mounting brackets. As you would expect with a car this age, both brake pipes snapped at the calipers when trying to remove them. With all but one of the parts off and the axle out, I laid them out to get a better look at the task in hand. The one part still on was the left hand axle mounting bracket. The brackets are held on with 3 coach bolts. Unfortunately one had spun, so I set to with the die grinder to split the nut. Fortunately, the coach bolt was okay and only needed the threads cleaned up with a die. Where the coach bolt mounts in the car will need some attention that I will cover later in the video. First little lesson, it was going to be way too big of a job to clean the axle up with a grinder, so I just sent it off to get shot blasted. The brake calipers were stripped down and the parts compared to the rebuild kits I had ordered. Everything looked okay. Calipers and hubs were shot blasted in my little shot blast cabinet. I also did all the brackets, nuts and bolts and everything else that was rusty. This took way longer than expected, probably not helped by my compressor being way too small for the job. With the calipers and anything else metal, they were treated with POR 15 metal prep. The calipers got 3 coats of silver caliper paint and the hubs POR rust prevention black. With the axle back from shot blasting, I gave it a couple of coats of the POR rust prevention black, and this was how it looked after the first coat. Considering this is brushed on, the finish is really good, I think. With the paint dry on the calipers, they needed rebuilding. I've done a separate video detailing how I rebuilt them. I will put a link at the end and in the description, but here is a sped up version to avoid this video being 2 hours long. There are a few areas on the chassis that needed some attention. I took the rough off with a wire wheel, then treated with a rust converter, then etch primed. I then added some stone guard before the blue top coat. I applied 2 to 3 coats of everything, so hopefully this will last. So these are the metal prep and paint products I used. So from left to right, we've got the standard grey primer, then we've got the Renault blue, we've got the Genelite rust converter, Genelite universal etch primer, we've got the high coat stone guard, and then the POR 15 metal prep. This was the result of the spun coach bolt mentioned at the beginning. The bolt would never hold when trying to tighten a nut on, so using some spare metal plate, I cut out a washer, filed a square hole to fit the coach bolt. The washer was then tack welded into the floor of the car. Had a little panic on when tack welding, as I managed to set a cloth that someone had left in the sill on fire. First sign of this was smoke coming out of the boot. Managed to put it out before any damage was caused though, so all was good. Next little lesson of the video, I decided I would zinc plate everything that wasn't painted. I got a kit off eBay, but in hindsight, the time it took and the finish achieved, it would have probably been better just to replace the parts. I will see how the parts have fared after some time spent back on the car. And so here's the product of all the hard work so far. Calipers rebuilt, all the nuts and bolts all zinc plated, all the other little bracketry all painted, prepped, everything ready to start going back together. One of the reasons for removing the axle was to replace the mountain bushes, as they were possibly the originals. I used part of the old bush and some bolts welded onto it to pull the new ones in. This seemed to work out quite well. I now fitted the hubs and brakes to the axle. Needed to feel like I was getting somewhere by this point, so repeated the process on the other side. The brake bias valve received the same treatment as everything else. It was stripped down, shot blasted, treated, painted or zinc plated, then reassembled. The reassembly was a little fiddly, and I replaced the seized pivot pin with a bolt for easier maintenance in the future. But it all came out looking great, I think. So now it was time to start fitting all the parts back onto the car. So to start with, we're starting here with the brake bias valve. So we'll get that mounted up to the chassis. You'll also see in this clip the rear chassis area that was painted up. Obviously now that's in its final blue colour, you can see what the final finish is. So we're just going to speed the clip up here and get all the brake bias valve all mounted up. Next up here, we're just connecting the brake pipes to the back of the brake bias valve. And now just a quick time lapse of we're reinstalling the actual axle back into the car. So the last part that I didn't actually record was bleeding the brakes up before I put the wheels on and put the car back on the floor. So I ended up buying a cheap vacuum bleeder to bleed the brakes. I also changed the fluid at the same time, obviously, but the cheap vacuum bleeder worked out to be great little addition to the workshop. To answer the question of how long all this took, well, way too long is the answer. Obviously, working on the car in my spare time, the whole job ended up taking a good 3 months to complete. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see the detailed caliper video, please click this link.